Good evening. It is a response to Prague Vlogs interesting video. She's been on the website about the gold list method of learning to long-term memory, which is www.goldlist.eu for European Union, and this is a method devised by myself based on the works of Ebbinghaus, the great researcher into human memory. It is a method taking into account also the work in the field of neurolinguistic programming, and it is basically a method also which takes into account things which I learned from the world of accountancy and business management. So it is something which brings together disciplines of a varying type to produce an effective method for learning to long-term memory. It is based on the theory that the long-term memory will populate itself anyway from what you put in front of it. You cannot consciously tell the long-term memory what it will remember. You can do this to an extent with the short-term memory, but it is very difficult to do it with the long-term memory. The long-term memory, like your heartbeat, is not under your conscious control. And I don't really care for these ideas like yoga and what have you to try to put the body under conscious control. Certain things were never meant to be under conscious control. It is not necessarily a good thing to put your heartbeat and other things under conscious control. What good would it do you? This is not the way in which we have been developed. So you have to accept that when you're cramming and pushing things into your memory in a deliberate way, you are going to put them into the short-term memory. The long-term memory samples from the short-term memory at a rate of about 30%. This was discovered by Ebbinghaus when, in the 1920s, he gave his students meaningless words to memorize, and he checked them after certain periods of time, which ones and how many of them they managed to remember. So, why do we want to learn to the long-term memory for languages? Well, the fact is that if you want to learn a language effectively, you need to be dealing with considerable amounts of vocabulary. You need to be putting in vocabulary up to maybe 10,000 words in order to say, yes, I'm really advanced, fluent speaker of the language. Even with less than 2,000 words, you would really not be able to get a simple foreigner's exam in a language. Such as an O-level in the British system. You would not really be able to call yourself intermediate in a language, only really a beginner, until you really have something like the 2,000 words. And this is a lot of work, this is a lot of words, but it is nothing to really necessarily understand. Whereas other fields of learning, such as mathematics or natural sciences, need for you to understand the way things work and to have maybe such a thing as an aha effect. The aha effect in language learning is rather different. There is no real aha in the fact that, for example, the word for a cat in Russian is koshka. Okay, you could actually go through understanding sound changes and realize that there is actually a certain regularity about the fact that you have cat in English with an A and this word in Slavonic having an O. And in fact, it is all to do with the way in which long and short vowels developed out into Germanic and Slavonic. But you don't need to know that in order to learn the language. Okay, later on when you study linguistics or study phonetics, study philology, at a higher level, then you are getting aha effects in reverse, as it were. You don't need to be getting an aha effect to know that koshka is the Russian word for cat, or that cat is English word for Russian koshka. It is simply a matter of accepting it. It is a fact. You're not going to change it, and to know it, to look maybe for patterns, but simply to remember it, and you cannot force yourself to remember it to the long-term memory. This is part one of what I have to say. Let me just give you an illustration at this point about it. Let's imagine you are a driver. Many of you drive cars, and you are driving your car to a new location, and you want to know how to get back again afterwards, because somebody that you're driving with is giving you directions on the way, but you're remembering things along the way to get back. And maybe you remember at this point, turn right at petrol station. Okay, I'll remember the petrol station. When I get back, go backwards, I'm going to turn left there. Here, next to, pardon me, next to this point, there is a big poster on the road. I'm turning, there's a fork in the road, I take the left fork. I'll recognize this point when I get back, that this is the fork, because I'll look for the poster. And I'm telling myself what I will look for. I'm looking for landmarks, and I will remember them when I get back. Maybe I'm going on a quite complicated road, and I'm remembering when I get back, am I on the right road or not? I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. And some of these things are things which I told myself I will remember. Other things I remember even subconsciously. I didn't really try to remember them. Yes, for example, I might go along and see, I remember how this road dips at this point, and I remember coming this way. But when I'm trying to deliberately push things into my mind, and I'm remembering landmarks, okay, and I'm deliberately saying this is what I will look out for, and I'll remember it going back again. Now, if I were to go back more than 2 weeks later, I would discover that most of the landmarks I tried to remember, I wouldn't remember. Most of the things which I had sampled into my memory subconsciously, I would still be remembering. But the things which I had tried to remember, I wouldn't remember any more than I would have done if I had not bothered specially to cram them into my memory. But if I go down that road backwards and forwards a number of times, even not trying to learn anything, and then I come back to that road many years later, I will still remember many things on that road. And many things will come back in my memory. Yes, I remember this, and this, and surely that poster was not there. It was different poster, etc. Because you are always sampling. The point is to repeat going down the road a number of times. Automatically your brain will sample certain landmarks for itself. That is the way we are wired up. And what we are sampling subconsciously is going first into the short-term memory, but also the long-term memory is also sampling in its own way subconsciously from the short-term memory. So first we're sampling into the long-term, into the short-term memory, and then sampling into the long-term memory from the short-term. We don't realize which things and at what rate are going into the long-term memory. Because the long-term memory is not a conscious function, in the way that the short-term memory is more of a conscious function. We really don't know when we say, for example, I'm sure I will remember today for as long as I live. Yes, it means because I've had very good time today, I want to, and I'm going to do all I can to remember it as long as I live. But in fact, you're not actually certain whether you will really remember today, if you had a nice day, for the rest of your life. You can be pretty sure you will remember it for 2 weeks. And the likelihood is, if you had a pleasant time, you will remember it for the rest of your life. This comes from neuro-linguistic programming, which tell you that pleasant experiences are more likely to remain in the memory and unpleasant experiences to be expelled from the memory. This is one reason why you shouldn't really cram and expect it to go to the long-term memory, because cramming is not a pleasant experience. It involves you forcing yourself, making yourself tired. Whereas the long-term memory, you can't even tell when it gets tired. You can actually tell when your muscles get tired. You can tell because they start to feel aching. You can tell when your intelligence gets tired, because you can't really talk as quickly, or you have to think, or you get distracted, and you think, I must be tired because I can't really think anymore. But you cannot tell when the long-term memory is getting tired. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't have any mechanism to say, hey, it's me, long-term memory, I'm getting tired now, stop learning. But the various researches that have been done, not only by Ebbinghaus but also since Ebbinghaus, tell us that you really shouldn't be doing any learning for more than about 20 minutes at a time. Then you need to stop and go away, do something completely different, entertain yourself with something, then come back, relax. Don't ever allow yourself to get tired. Don't let that long-term memory go after the 20 minutes. Its function will go down. Okay, so all of this business of cramming and cramming and cramming, it's to get students through their exams. They are sitting there working all night in order to be able to go and spit out all their knowledge in the exam the next day. And quite frankly, in 2 weeks' time, they will not remember any of what they learned. Okay, and if you are using certain of the language learning methods, I will not make any mention of them. I sometimes have mentioned ones which do this, but they're using cramming, they're using a lot of this making linkages with things, and they're using loci method and other things like that. These are actually adding in unnecessarily baggage into the memory, and they are very good for pushing in a lot of stuff to the short term. After 14 days are up, you will start to forget all of this. That's why a lot of these language courses, and I won't say who they are, but you can go to the shop or look in the advertisements, you will see they are always offering the money back after 16 days. Because during that time you think, oh, this is fantastic method. I'm remembering that cat is koshka, or I'm remembering that a male cat is a cot because I'm thinking of a male cat sleeping in a baby's cot. Unnecessarily baggage. Don't even think that way. It is making an extra amount of work, but it's just helping you make these associations which will place it into the short-term memory because you did it by an act of deliberate work. After 2 weeks you'll probably forget most of them. And this wonderful effect, this blossoming, this mushrooming of knowledge that you get from using these methods for up to 2 weeks, they don't last. And then what happens is students get depressed. Oh, I'm going backwards, I'm not going forwards. Oh, I don't have a gift for languages. Oh, it's all my fault. Oh, I will buy the course again after I had a break and I'll try again, because it's not the course's fault, it's all my fault. It's a rubbish. It's the course's fault. The course is making you learn through short-term memory. Doing it very, very cynically, because knows you will think it's your fault and buy the same course again, spending money again on the same stupid course. And people who are learning with some of these methods, I've said in other places what they are spending out money year after year, going to the same course, learning to short-term memory. You don't even need to do this. The way I'm telling you will save you money, because you don't have to pay me anything for it. Okay, you need to work out and follow what I'm saying in order to learn it and go through the website and go through the images which I'm going to show you, in order to learn this method of learning to long-term language. But I'm not asking for anybody to pay for it. I don't want you to receive payment for repeating it to anybody else, by the way. So it is copyright, this is, but it's effectively Creative Commons, because as long as you attribute to me the methodology that I'm giving now, you will be okay to pass it on to other people on your websites, etc. You should state that it comes from me, and as long as you're not making money from it or getting advertising revenues, then that's okay. If you are making the advertising revenues yourselves, then obviously you have to think about perhaps talking to me about this, and probably I will suggest some charitable donation to one or another charity made on my behalf. Not to me, I hasten to add. I don't need to live from this stuff. But if you are going to use it to make money, then you should really tell me about it, and we will talk about what donations you have to make and to what organizations. They will be humanitarian organizations for general use of human race. Anyway, to continue on this matter, I have made a series of images to show how the book works that you have to fill up in order to make this methodology work. Okay, it is based on repeating your flow of vocabulary, and it doesn't really matter what the sources of vocabulary are. They could be from any course or even taken straight from a dictionary. They can be grouped into themes, like Prague Vlog say she grouped into themes, that's very good. You can be starting to group them into themes as you go through the distillations as well. There's nothing wrong in reordering it a little bit as you go if you manage to do it. Okay, and start to produce groups of things, themes of things by taking from a few pages at once if you can do it. But whether you do it in groups or whether you do it as the words appear in a course, or even if you take them straight from dictionary, that actually aspect doesn't matter so much. Neither does it really matter if you're talking about vocabulary as single lexical units or as phrases. Although it's interesting to be able to keep a record of how many words you know. So in the top list, in the first list, I like to break it down word by word and maybe then distill them as I go into phrases, pushing the words together into little phrases or into small mini lists on one line. These are called synthesizations of the words into longer amounts of content per line. In the beginning you would only have one line per one word in the earlier levels of this, or as I call them, the earlier distillations. I call it distillations because it's an image like from, if you imagine trying to achieve something which is very purely refined gold. And the gold which you are trying to achieve is those words in a language which were really the most easily escaping your memory, the hardest to remain learned. You are seeking to make a list of the words which really you find difficult to learn. That's your gold. And this is why it is called the gold list methodology. It's nothing about making money. If anybody thinks it's about that, well, you can go away right now because it's not going to make you rich. Well, it might help you get rich. If learning a language will help you earn more money, because it will enable you to get a better job, then fine, but it's not really necessarily about making the money. The gold in the image is finding the words which you just cannot get into your memory and making the smallest possible list of those words. Okay, that's what it's called gold list for. Now, this probably is going to take more than one part, this video, because I'm starting to talk a long time. What I probably do is stop this video and then start the next video to continue in talking about this, because otherwise I'm going to have too much time in one video and the people will not be able to see it because it will go over 100 megabytes. So I'll be talking about this some more in part 2 of this explanation about the gold list system. See you soon.